us about?
Well, the moon, in many regards, is the most unique thing certainly in our solar system and maybe in our galaxy. It's the only object that I can think of that is not spinning.
No, it's
all other moons spin and rotate and revolve at the same time.
Very suspicious.
Indeed, and the particular place it's been set up relative to its boundaries north and south of the equator, and it's what's called the lunation, its little wandering that it does, also seems to suggest that there's some kind of like, if you will, a hyperdimensional magnetic field that it's operating in, and it can't wander too far north or too far south from that field. This again goes back to that 19.47 triangulation of the tetrahedron inside the sphere that really is at the basis of probably all of reality, but certainly at the basis of NASA's thinking and anybody else messing around with the hyperdimensional stuff going all the way back to the Nazis and all the way forward to who knows who.
Right. The other questions relayed to me, to you, which I sent to you, is there life on the moon? Will this start a space war? No, I don't think so. Is it a warlike gesture? Yes, it is. Is there life on the moon as we know it? No. Certainly on Mars, there's every indication to suggest there is lots of life on Mars.
Well, then, we may not know about the moon. There's a real issue there. If you go and look at some of the historical literature that's non-Western, which is to say the really old stuff that comes in from the Jain, which is a concurrent or a separate path from Buddhism and predates Buddhism by about, thousands of years. They actually maintain that there were 2.5 islands of life in our solar system, Mars, Earth, and the Moon.
Right.
And that at one point, some several million of years back, our total population of humanity on those 3 islands exceeded 600 million. So, 600 billion.
Billion, yeah.
Yeah.
I would suggest that there certainly is activity on the moon. Do I think there's a resident indigenous life form there? Personally, I don't.
No, I wouldn't think that either. However, we do have all kinds of indications from NASA themselves, especially in their weird Santa Claus exists on the dark side of the moon references continuously, that there's a lot of guys that probably go and just park there.
Sure.
So in that sense, I'm sure that there's critters there, and I sure hope NASA don't hit one accidentally. You know, they're not too good at aiming.
No, they aren't.
You know, they missed Mars a couple of times. That inches and feet business, or inches and millimeters business. So. But in that sense, no, I don't think that there is life as an indigenous population there. But if the thing actually, you know, if the math is really understood, you've got to try and figure out some way to account for the moon's position relative to its mass, relative to Earth, and that does seem to suggest that it's hollow. And then if it's hollow, well, there's all kinds of potential for hiding stuff in there, including people walking around.
Sure. This is going to be watched, obviously, very closely. The geology of this mission is not restricted to water. They're going to be doing lots of things. I suggest they'll be able to determine in some ways what kind of minerals are below the surface. Maybe there is not much below the surface except an open space. They'll find that too. But if you go on the internet and do a search about pinging the moon and the moon is hollow, you'll find a lot of very interesting reading.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for you, but it's certainly provocative and well worth your time.
Well, even back into the late 1700s and early 1800s, and even all through Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, you'll find references to the anomaly of the mass of the moon. I mean, people were kind of curious about it then when they started doing their first really sufficient astronomical calculations and so on that led us to where we are today with NASA. They were saying, well, wait a second, how can this be? If it has that mass, it should be way far away or crash down on us, unless the apparent mass is not the actual true mass, and the only thing that would account for that is either super light material, matter we're unaware of, or there's not as much matter in the middle of it as we think there is.
Right. I still never could come to intellectual terms with the idea that it's the only thing that doesn't rotate.
That's really strange. There is one other body that is close to that, and that is also really odd, and that's Iapetus, which is a moon of Saturn or Jupiter, I think. And it has strange properties as well that appear to make it artificial and like parked in this strange orbit. But even so, it's not as unique because it still does rotate.
Right. I wonder what would happen if this body we call the moon began to rotate.
Boy, get our attention, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All the monkeys on the planet would be looking and saying, what's going on?
Scratching each other's heads, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, back with Clif in just a couple of minutes. Someone else sent in a few questions during, I guess, earlier today. So we'll see if we can duck some of those in as well. All right, Clif High of halfpasthuman.com is with us, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back with Clif High. There is so much going on in terms of the economy. Let me just suggest this before we get to the question here. You again, months ago on this program, and the data, I guess, points right to it, is, I hate to say October surprise, but we're looking September, October, November as the next shoe falling, and it may be quite a bit larger size shoe. Some of the other media is beginning to pick that date up now, and I'm strongly suspicious that they are big fans of yours and are tying it together with rather obvious financial indicators. So what does it look like for October? We've got this summer malaise going on now. We're thinking, well, who was it? Little Timmy said that recovery is just around the corner.
Prosperity is just around the corner.
That's what it was.
We
hit
the bottom and all of that business.
That's right. Yeah. I guess Timmy was writing his letter to Santa early. But it's a joke. Listen, folks, this summer tranquility is an illusion that is going to be radically dismembered very soon. Anyway, how does it look overall for this fall? The pandemic notwithstanding here. Let's talk about the economy.
Leaving that aside, just dealing with the economic aspect of it, even though there's some happy talk now and some supposedly good numbers, et cetera, indicating the bottom, our data for at least the last 8 or 9 months has been pointing to July 15th to August 16th as being a period in which in the background we're going to have a derivatives crisis. And this derivatives crisis now may indeed be on track because, of course, just recently, curiously, here we have a high-end linguistic thing pointing to derivatives problems and so on, and we don't have a clue as to how it's going to work out in details. And along comes Goldman Sachs software theft, et cetera, and all these other minutiae kind of things that are all combining to get together to form probably a very large co-op on those people that are dealing in these absurd instruments that have us all indebted to the Queen of England and the Federal Reserve for 4 or 5 generations.
No accident that, folks, either. No accident that, I said.
None whatsoever. And and our situation now as the downtrodden masses is that the continuation of the credit crisis will rear its head again for us probably after the 22nd of August, and it'll increase in severity and language intensity right up through September, probably all the way to maybe the 30th of September, and then we're going to hit kind of a little speed bump. Could be anything from a proposal for a bank holiday, which is to say, a period of time when they shut the banks down, to an actual period of time when they shut the banks down. However, whatever it is that is our economic malaise detail at the end of September will somehow echo and rhyme with what comes to be an international crisis on October 25th. And then 11 days later, approximately the 4th or 5th of November.
You're getting the 25th routinely, are you?
I'm sorry?
You're getting the 25th routinely?
Yeah, actually it was the 26th, and in this recent data run, it's shifted forward.
Okay, all right. Didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. It makes sense to actually know that because the data is not static from run to run, so as we get closer to events, we can actually pick up more detail. And so we thus actually do have another run scheduled and the data is running now. It's going to be one of our longest data gathering periods. We're going to try and get a report out sometime in September. So we'll capture that language and be able to peek ahead, so to speak, just those few days.
You are working yourself to the bone, man.
Well, universe has been kicking my butt. Every time I try to take a day off, it comes along and slaps me upside the head and says, get back to work. But I swear I'm taking August off to go to this Aikido intensive in Olympia here. In any event, though, along come fall, we're going to hit the speed bump at the end of September. That speed bump might be the actual materialization of language that discusses whatever it is that's going to be going on in the background here, July through August. And it's all negative. It's all very negative relative to the dollar. This will get to the point where it combines or creates its own momentum from the 25th of October forward, there will be a 10-day period of time in which the economy will be just a driving force in all of this other stuff, all this other stew all arising. And our data shows that the Obama administration, as well as other countries' administrations, go on this giant truckabout. I mean, it just shows all these people having to meet together suddenly and crises kind of this mode from November 5th onward. And that period of time lasts all the way up until the end of March.
So what you're saying here is that it's not going to be a ho, ho, ho Christmas for a lot of people.
No, and in fact, I think last Christmas was the last thing, is the last one we could call in any way, shape, or form normal.
Hey, there you go. Yeah. I concur. I remember we talked about that in the program, and you said that was going to be the last one, and we were telling people, enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, because it's getting really weird. Yeah.
This is going to be a hellish period. Let's take the whipped cream and cherry and add it to that ugly sundae and call it a pandemic. And we have the potential of a lot of carnage here, not just economic carnage, but physical carnage. There are now suggestions in the UK they're expecting up to 40 deaths a day this flu season. I would suggest that is actually quite conservative. We're seeing some very intense things going on in the southern hemisphere. And this virus, of course, has many potentials of recombination, which could make it indeed a grim and grimmer reaper than it has been so far. People they talk about how low the actual case fatality rate has been so far. Not true, folks. This is a nasty one. Even the meds over in the UK are saying this is 5 times more virulent than the normal flu, which has been literally broomed off the stage by this H1N1 swine flu, and it's going to be here.
There's another issue that we must really look at as well, and that is look at where it is effective now in terms of its most lethal form, and that is the southern hemisphere. If you'll also note, many of these areas within the southern hemisphere that we're getting the surprising influenza penetration rates are also those areas which have the chemtrails in that area, thus reducing their light levels.
I'm getting sporadic reports about heavy chemtrail spraying too, yes?
Yes. Now, I'm not suggesting that the flu is being spread by chemtrails, but I'm saying that the natural consequence of the spread of chemtrails in an area of the planet that is in its winter is that these people are getting less light, therefore manufacturing less vitamin D. Vitamin D is